Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we are discussing one of the stars of 2021. Redesign for this year, and a rare redesign. This is the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch, 42 millimeters in stainless steel. This generation of the redesigned Moonwatch, designed to evoke the Apollo era Speedmaster 105.012, with a lot of vintage evocative features, but a very forward-looking movement and newly upgraded construction. So it's a 42 millimeter. This is a Sapphire sandwich, so display case back and Sapphire over the dial. 13.7 millimeters thick, 47.2 millimeters from lug to lug, and 20 millimeters the spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference and oval, and it fits quite nicely. With pivoted end links to the bracelet, it actually wears smaller than the previous model. Of course, the bracelet designed to be a little bit vintage evocative. It's got a nostalgic look to it, and perhaps it feels a little bit more like a dress bracelet than in the past, though it is beautifully made and quite rugged for sports watch purposes. You can see the watch is thin enough to fit underneath most cuffs. That's not going to be a big problem. And then across the wrist, you can see as I roll, down the barrel shows just how much space I have on both sides. So I think you could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. Taking a look at the hardware, you can see it really does, in many ways, look a bit like a dress watch bracelet, as you have these short cross-section links with oval profiles, polished outer faces, polished intermediates down the center, and there is a pronounced taper going on here. Taking a look at the individual links, you can see there are many of them, and they're small, all of them fixed by screws, and there are many removable links, so you're going to find the right size here. Another sort of vintage touch, you have this nostalgically narrow clasp that has a twin trigger release system, and of course Omega logo with a striation on the outside and a little bit of a polished bevel between the satin finished flanks and the satin finished top. Rolling back to the case, lyre style lugs, you know them well. They sort of tilt inboard, but they also bevel outboard. There's a polished longitudinal shear section on the side. There's an expanding bevel that is polished, expanding at the ends of the lugs and thinning out at the mid-case. The underside of the tachymeter you can see is polished. Crown and chronograph pushers polished with a distinctive shear guard for protection. Rolling over to the bezel, you can see it is still anodized aluminum, a nostalgic ./90 scale, and you can see that it is still calibrated to 500 units. So along with the chronograph, you use the tachymeter to gauge the speed of, for example, a car over a kilometer, and that's what that is for. As you can see, this is a sapphire crystal right here, so an upscale look, because this is the Sapphire sandwich with the display case back. This version of the Reborn Moonwatch now has an applique Omega logo on the dial, so that's how you know the difference between a standard version of this watch with solid case back and the Sapphire sandwich, just by looking at that applique Omega logo. Some changes to the dial, they're mostly detailed changes. The indices have a little bit of a different profile when you look at them under a loupe, and there's a little bit more perhaps countersync to the individual registers. Their countersync is a bit more apparent to the eye, but it's still matte black with white on black printing for minimal glare and maximum contrast. Turn it all over, all is change. See how well I can show this to you? That's probably better. Now, this movement, of course, is still distantly based on the Lamagna 1873, so it maintains its link to that historic base movement, but a lot has changed. This is caliber 3861, which first appeared on the Moonshine Gold Apollo 11 50th anniversary piece in 2019. Power reserve increases a bit from 48 to 50, and it now has a free-sprung balance for greater shock tolerance, a silicon hairspring for anti-magnetism, and jewel count kicks up from 18 to 26. You can see it is still a cam selector with a lateral clutch, both allowing it to be extremely shock tolerant, and it still beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It's still water resistant down to 50 meters, but it now has a coaxial escapement for the first time on a mass-produced Moonwatch, and in addition to that, it is a Master Chronometer. So while Omega chose wisely not to clutter the dial, technically this does meet the same METAS standard that a Planet Ocean, a Diver 300 meter, or one of the automatic winding Speedmasters would meet Maytaz is a high standard. First, as a cased-up watch, the watch has to be tested in 6 positions, meet and then exceed the COSC chronometer standards. It's a standard that Omega created with the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology. So COSC is a bare movement test. Maytaz, Master Chronometer, is a full cased-up watch test. It doesn't just include chronometry in 6 positions. It includes, for example, power reserve, shock resistance, water resistance, and anti-magnetism. So it is a very impressive full watch standard that really evaluates every type of functional and durability factor that bears on one of these watches. Now, the one thing I will say is that the bridge work isn't quite as detailed as it was on the old caliber 1863, which had more of a rounded mirror bevel to its bridges. This is more of a machined angle. So while not technically as pleasing from an aesthetic standpoint at super close magnification, from a purely technology and engineering standpoint, it is a much more impressive movement. So reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. We're back with the redesigned Moonwatch in the dark. Take note, this is the first true Lamagna-based Moonwatch to have hacking or stop seconds.